Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment would exempt the Border Patrol from the particulars of this legislation. I want to indicate and remind people that this is the underlying bill, and I respect the bill's sponsor, actually is dealing with the change with elections and is permissive, not mandatory. So in 2018, President Trump issued an executive order ensuring transparency, accountability, and efficiency in taxpayer-funded union time use. It instructed federal agencies to renegotiate their collective bargaining agreements and cut official time, saying that, quote, executive branch employees should spend their duty hours performing the work of the federal government and serving the public, close quote. In November of 2019, a new collective bargaining agreement for the Border Patrol Council took effect with President Trump's support. The agreement expanded the number of border agents whose roles as union officers allow them to engage in political activity and increased the amount of hours agents could spend on union activities. Under the previous agreement, agents could utilize 18,000 hours of official time per year, and under the new agreement, they can utilize 153,000 hours per year. That's equivalent of roughly 74 full-time employees. While union representatives generally use official time hours to work on employee grievances and other labor-related matter, they can also advocate for specific border policies, and that is what they did under the previous administration. And they did that because the previous administration destroyed our border security policies. So consider how beneficial that time was under the Biden administration. It turned out to be serendipitous, actually. For instance, the NBPC assisted with several trips to the border for members of Congress. The NBPC officials were on TV constantly during the Biden administration telling the truth to the public about the border crisis. Were it not for them and a select few dedicated reporters, the world would not have known how bad it was. The NBPC defended the Border Patrol agent who was falsely accused of whipping Haitian migrants in Texas. Amid a rise in assaults on Border Patrol agents, 601 in fiscal year 23 and over 400 in fiscal year 24, the NBPC has defended agents by calling out the Biden administration for insufficient action. And one more, following the May 2022 Uvalde shooting, in which Border Patrol agents, including BORTAC, were among the first responders, the NBPC provided the emotional counseling and professional support to agents and the community. So that is important here, but the other thing that's important to understand about this particular union is they were the only group under DHS that was not getting paid overtime and got no raises. And in the NDAA of 2023, the NDAA included a provision spearheaded by NBPC, which I supported via other legislation, to allow agents to earn time and a half for overtime for hours 81 to 100 in a pay period, which they otherwise were not getting. This association has been uniquely positioned, and I want to just talk about something that one of my colleagues was, in a previous iteration, a previous argument was talking about. These agents, I've literally been out in agents in places that were so remote you could not reach anyone. And I have met with agents who were attacked, assaulted, seriously injured in these places where no one else is and no one else goes. Other times I've been with agents who've literally had to stand on top of the roof of their truck to try to reach a signal to report to other agents to please come pick up a group. That particular group, that time, there was 22 people. I've literally been with agents when there's been a group of there's been groups totaling 300 people together. And it's been me, a couple of congressmen, and one agent as they deal with 300 individuals coming in. I have respect for what they do. I think they deserve this cutout, and that's why I'm doing it. I also intend to support the underlying bill. I have great respect for Mr. Cloud and his efforts in this area. He's been a leader here, But that's where I stand, and I thank you, and I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes.
Go for it.
Go ahead. Yeah, Kassar.
Chair, I have a very, well, first of all, I'd say to Mr. Biggs and to the point of this amendment, I certainly support the Border Patrol agents, CBAs, to be respected. And also am, of course, alarmed by the dangers that agents face and, of course, by any violence against any federal employee or federal agent. My question for the sponsor of the amendment, I really am interested in having some discussion on this point, is why not also include other people who put their lives at risk that work for the federal government? I was just in conversation with federal employees that literally fly a plane into a hurricane at NOAA to go and let us know when and where a hurricane is going to hit. It's probably the most dangerous job on earth. Shouldn't we extend and make sure that their workplace protections and their workplace contracts have to be respected? Shouldn't FBI agents, who also put their lives on the line, have their CBA agreements respected? Shouldn't our veterans who have served and then come back and serve at the DOD and a variety of other agencies also have their collective bargaining agreements also protected for the reasons, in fact, where I actually genuinely do agree here with Congressman Biggs that if we're going to respect that work, why would we come in and say we're going to not respect the collective bargaining agreement where you have, in good faith, bargained back and forth with the government and come to an agreement? And so that's my genuine question, and I have time to yield back to the sponsor of the amendment or anybody else that would answer that.
Gentleman yields back. Chair.
No, I would yield. I'm saying I would yield to anybody that has that answer. In a moment, I'm going to yield to Mr. Lynch, but I want to better understand if we're going to, as I believe we should, honor the collective bargaining agreements of Border Patrol agents. Why not also honor the collective bargaining agreements of FBI agents? Why not also honor the collective bargaining agreements of Department of Defense workers that have served in our military? Why not also honor the collective bargaining agreements of people that put their lives on the line to protect us from natural disasters? Mr. Chairman, without a response, I'll yield a minute here to Mr. Lynch.
Great. I agree with the gentleman's reasoning. Not only is there a sense of fairness at play here, but there's also the due process clause of the Fifth Amendment. So we cannot have a situation where the constitutional right to contract is unprotected for these unions because we have a new president. And so he can just rip up the contract and say, okay, your rights are destroyed, and we're gonna start fresh, and I'm going to negotiate an agreement that probably could be overturned by the next president. You know, that doesn't work. Not for workers in the least bit. So.
And Mr. Lynch, it sounded like part of the reason the amendment was laid out was because one union supported one political cause or candidate versus another.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you would see that as a violation of equal treatment under the law, equal right to contract, because it sounds like the sponsor laid out which one of the unions that supported one candidate for president, another union that supported a different candidate for president, and wanting to respect the contracting rights for people that supported their preferred candidate versus not.
Exactly. It allows a political dimension to this that is inappropriate. Thank you. I yield back.
Chairman, and now we have the sponsor of the amendment back, and so I would genuinely yield time to him if that's allowed here. I want to voice my support for allowing CBAs to carry on for all of the different people at all the different agencies that put their lives on the line for the American people. So I would want to extend this to FBI agents, to people that fly their planes into the heart of the storm at NOAA. I just want to get a better understanding, because what I just laid out with Mr. Lynch is it sounds like we want to treat certain people one way because of their political views and other people another way because of their views. And I'm opposed to that, and I will continue to be opposed to that, whether there's a Democratic or Republican President. So I want to better understand why not extend this to the other federal employees that put their lives at risk every day. Chairman, I still have some time, so I don't know if the sponsor of the amendment or others would want to speak up.
I think I made my position very clear in both the earlier amendment that I ran and in my statement with this amendment. And I will just tell you, most of those agencies that you just referred to, they were not being attacked by their bosses, their administrators. CBP was.
And Mr. Biggs, I would work with you and anyone else to make sure that workers are not attacked by administrators, no matter which presidential candidate or whichever presidential administration we are under. And we should support the free speech rights of those employees, regardless of whether they agree with my preferred candidate or not. But it sounds like what we're talking about now is giving people certain rights because they had certain political ideas instead of others. And I believe American workers have the right to speak up whether they agree with me or not. Unfortunately, it sounds like the Republican majority thinks otherwise.
Any other members? Mr. Cloud?
As much as respect as I have for Mr. Biggs, I speak in opposition to this amendment. I agree with Mr. Biggs and everything he said about our Border Patrol. I've been to the border with Mr. Biggs, and also I'm from South Texas, so I've been there on my own a number of times. And it's true the work they do is heroic, and it's also true that they were unfairly treated by the previous administration. However, for the same reasons that, similar reasons I should say, that Mr. Lynch and Mr. Kassan brought up, I think we run into dangerous grounds when there's a very good chance that the Border Patrol union is my favorite union, but I think that's the point, is we should be treating them all fairly, and this comes down to really the question of, does the executive have the authority to be the executive and to manage his workforce or her workforce if the time comes. And so that's simply what it is, and so I think it's a dangerous precedent to start making caveats, and for that, I must oppose this amendment, and I thank the chairman for the time and yield back.
Any other members seek recognition? Seeing none, we will now, the question is now on the amendment offered by Mr. Biggs.